Alrighty, guys. It is playoff time. Spencer G here, Slaughterhouse Sports. We are going to take a look and analyze just holistically what the committee did. And, a little bit later in the show, I'm going to do some team profiles in the playoff. I think that's the way that I'll kind of do it, looking at each team specifically, what their upside is in the playoff, what their path's going to be. We might even talk about games. So we have a couple of weeks until this thing's going to kick off. I think the committee got it absolutely right putting SMU over Alabama. Because Alabama, by a point spread margin, they might beat SMU if they played, but SMU went 11-1, and they won 10 straight games after losing to BYU. That, to me, is very valuable. The regular season, winning games, getting to your conference title game is very, very imperative, I believe. And Alabama, so let's compare this Alabama versus Florida State thing last year to Rhett Lashley and SMU. So Alabama last year, by the way, they only had one loss with Jalen Milroe, and that was against Texas, a great team that ended in the college football playoff. Then Alabama went undefeated the rest of the way. Alabama was able to roll through they beat LSU. They, with Nick Saban, they even beat Ole Miss. So they had their moment. They went 11-1. Very special. And then they played in the SEC championship and beat Georgia. So they were 12-1. There was only one game of separation, and they were great last year from a record standpoint, much more consistent. I know that the strength of schedule this year increased. So that's a whole nother story. But last year, wins and losses-wise, resume-wise, they were just consistent. Nick Saban kept them consistent. Don't think they would have lost against even Oklahoma, even though that, is part of the different scheduling. Tennessee last year at home, they were able to play a brilliant second half and beat Tennessee. Defensively, they were better last year. So Alabama and then Milroe and them went out and beat Carson Beck. So to me, that was a very deserving team. Great football team. This year's Alabama's not good. They're 9-3. They just lost to Oklahoma. They've lost at every point during the season. Can't really point to them turning that corner. Against LSU, they give you a great game. Or against Georgia in the first half, they'll play brilliantly in stretches for sure. If you catch them on the right day, they have better talent than SMU. If SMU and Bama played about 10 times, I think Bama wins 6 to 7 games out of the 10. But SMU could win 4 very easily, and Alabama can get blown at. SMU could probably beat them by 17 in one of those iterations because Milroe would turn it over. And SMU has a better offense than Oklahoma. I think SMU can beat Oklahoma, probably 7 out of 10 times. All right, even though Oklahoma has great talent defensively, more talent defensively than even SMU does. Okay, but Oklahoma didn't have an offense. It's why their whole room is different. Okay, on the offensive side. SMU's really good. Don't mind the committee's decision at all about that. So Clemson gets in as a 9-3, even a automatic championship. They won the ACC. That's where I guess it can get strange with the buys and the buy system. I think that having 12 in is a lot. I would like maybe 8. So if it were an 8-team playoff, you would, and then if you eliminated the conference champion, they won't probably eliminate the conference championship. Although I loved seeing Oregon win the conference championship. So then you can have Texas, Georgia, Oregon in there. You can have Notre Dame in there. So, and if you had 8, then SMU would have to maybe win against Clemson to get in. So the bar would be very, very high. You'd have Notre Dame. You would have Penn State. You'd have 8 teams. Ohio State would be out. Tennessee would be out. Clemson, even winning the championship, would be out. Arizona State or Boise State, unfortunately, those 2 teams would most likely be out of an 8 team. I do like Arizona State. So I think it's complicated having a 12 team. I think that the way the seeding works is going to be complicated. of course, the major gripes are that Oregon does have a tougher path than Penn State, even though they beat Penn State has SMU, and Oregon has Tennessee or Ohio State, and then Oregon's going to have Texas. So the way that, you have Boise and Arizona State, which would have been ranked, much because of the automatic conference champs getting byes, that has ruined it. That's probably going to get fixed going forward, which is fine. But at least those teams that win the championship of their conference get in, which I'm okay with the automatic qualifiers, not like giving them byes. That could be a step too far. Overall, the season actually was still meaningful with Arizona State, with Clemson and SMU, still big implications. It's fun to see Arizona State, SMU. It's fun to see new blood in these playoffs. Boise State. I actually like it. I actually am pumped about it. I'm pumped that Clemson won. All right, and Arizona State gets a bye, Boise gets a bye. So as much as the system, though, is not like that fair to an Oregon, and some teams have a tougher road, the 12 it makes it very hard. If you had it at 8, you could still have great regular season play, maybe reward conference championship, maybe even just make that an automatic qualifier and then just make it 8. All right, but through the bracket, I think that Penn State this year is surging. I think Penn State's a team to watch out for. I have Penn State and probably Georgia. Georgia's going to get Notre Dame probably. That's going to be a dang classic. So now I'm going to look at the whole kind of bracket. I think, of course, Oregon gets a tough road. I mean, Oregon's going to have to play Tennessee, but I believe like Texas's defense is so great. Texas' defense looks a lot better than Oregon's. Texas' defense looks for real. They look like a complete team, even though Ewers in that offense is really disappointing in some key spots. Looking here, the NCAA football playoffs. Give me the dang bracket. Here we go. We got it. We got it, guys. Okay. So Tennessee or Ohio State's going to be playing Oregon. At least it's at the Rose Bowl. And then it could be Texas, and that's a very tough matchup for Arizona State. The Clemson-Texas game, can't wait to preview that. That's such a referendum with Clemson. That's exactly like the Georgia game. At least Clemson stepped up against South Carolina, and South Carolina was playing great football, and Clemson's defense played well enough where it took superhuman effort from Lenore Sellers to win that job and win that thing. Now you got Indiana, the two schools of Indiana playing a little night game, a little TNT. That's what's going to be fun, too. I actually like that. That's a little new blood is TNT and Turner getting that thing off the ground for the college football playoff. Penn State. Excuse me. So Penn State, I really believe Penn State can win this whole thing. Penn State can be in the national title game incredibly easy. Penn State has an easier road than I think Texas or than Oregon. I believe it will be Oregon, Texas for sure. Oregon, Texas, big time favorites to get to the Final Four. As much as I hate saying that about Arizona State, and then Penn State, like it should be Penn State and let's see if it's Georgia or Notre Dame. That game's going to be an absolute war. Those two teams are similar on the offensive side of the ball. Man. I actually might go Notre Dame. I might go Notre Dame, Penn State. What a game that's going to be. And that game will be played, guys, in Texas. That'll be the Cotton Bowl. And the Orange Bowl will be Oregon, Texas. That'll be the Orange Bowl because they don't want to put Texas in the Cotton Bowl. There you go. So I pretty much said the 4. As crazy as it sounds, I gave my predictions, but we're going to get into it. Maybe there'll be some upsets here, especially in the first round of this playoff. Arizona State, their matchup is always going to be hard. If Clemson wins, that's huge for Arizona State, huge. Arizona State matches up much better. Could it be Boise could SMU pull the upset on Penn State, though? It still is possible. Then it's SMU, Boise. Then with your Notre Dame and Georgia, what they want to see is maybe Penn State, Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl, and they want to see Oregon, Texas maybe be the night game. Boy, oh boy, what a scene that's going to be if that's the Final Four, though. The brands that are in that game. And Penn State can win the whole thing. Penn State right now might even be my pick to win this whole thing. Because their path, Oregon's going to have to play against Ohio State or a Tennessee team that beats Ohio State. And then Oregon, Texas is going to be really tough for Oregon. But Oregon, you know, they went 13-0. They won a Big Ten championship, or 12-0. That is, 13-0. That's ridiculously awesome. You can never take that away from Oregon. Oregon gets the 1 seed. It's going to be tough regardless. Even if Oregon lost yesterday, they're in Penn State's chair. Like, it's tough to go through this whole thing and win a title, get a ring. And Oregon got a ring. You don't want to live with regret. Like, imagine you go out there, you lose on purpose. Like, that's just unethical. And then you don't get a ring out of it in the process. So, yeah, Oregon's road's tougher. I know. But maybe Arizona State can beat Texas, you know, and then your theoretical road gets easier. So just can't control it. I know that, yeah, I think roads do matter. Matchups matter, just like the NCAA tournament. It does. Because teams can get hot, and I know you got to beat the best to be the best. But the path does matter. And for Penn State, the path is looking great for them to rev up a little bit with James Franklin. They easily are the big winners here. Let's look at Texas. Texas, too, has a chance here against Clemson and Arizona State to make waves. It could be Penn State, Texas. Boy, oh boy. Penn State can win this whole thing. That would be the craziest thing. Alrighty, guys. Let me know what you think about the early playoff first. I guess we'll call this first bracket impressions. First impressions. Alrighty, guys. Thanks. Take care.